let's compare each of the colonial regions. This is a great chart to look at to figure out what they have in common, what they are different in. New England colonies, because of their terrain, they're very good at getting wood, fish, and have deep harbors. They have skilled craftsmen. They relied on fishing, shipbuilding, being merchants. One thing is that they all have tools and buildings. You can see here, they all built their own tools and buildings, but they were especially good at building tools. The Mid-Atlantic had rich farmlands. Basically, food is what you want to think about when you're talking about the Mid-Atlantic. They had skilled and unskilled workers, fishermen as well, but farmers. They had a lot of farmers, merchants. Remember the great water harbors like New York. And then in the south, we got the cash crop areas, very fertile farmland. They have forest, rivers, and harbors to help them move their stuff around and keep their land fertile. And the human resource really is what separates them. They have some free farmers and planters. They had these some small farms, but great plantations. They enslaved African Americans. They had indentured servants. This is what really separates their workers from the other workers that are mostly free for the most part. Geography influences these things. They all have Appalachian Mountains. That's something that we should um, talk about. They have excellent harbors as well as remember, um, you've got deep, wide rivers here. Rocky soils, not very good for farming, but the rich farmlands are really in the mid-Atlantic and the south. And it's cold up here in New England, whereas it's moderate in mid-Atlantic and hot and humid in the south. So you kind of think of it, this is Mama Bear, this is Papa Bear, and in the middle you got Baby Bear as far as their porridge, cold, hot, and um, just right. Then we get to economic specialization, which is where we have focusing on making one or a few products. Each colony specialized in certain things. So you've got fishing, shipbuilding, naval supplies, metal tools and equipment. So you could think about the New England as water. You know, they're all about the ocean and fishing, shipbuilding, all that stuff. In the Mid-Atlantic, you can think of it as food, livestock, grains, fish. They're all about producing food. And in the South, you have cash crops, tobacco, rice, indigo, other forests like tar and pitch, which is where you get the North Carolina Tar Heels. Okay, they're the ones that would make these things that were excellent use for sealants, for houses, even for ships. If you have a leak in a ship, then you're done for. If you have a leak in a house, you're going to have problems. So each specialization was very important, which created an interdependence. So if the other colonies needed food, they would turn to the Mid-Atlantic. If they needed um, things that were made, like ships and naval supplies, they go to New England. And if they wanted cash crops such as tobacco or indigo, they would go to the south. So they were very independent. They traded with each other quite a bit and made the colonies very, very rich when they've got all this trade. Now, what something to keep in mind about this interdependence, where two or more people come to depend on each other for goods and services. That's one of our uh, words here. Um, if they start depending on each other for trade, what do you think is going to happen if England messes with one of them? Let's say they go into New England and shut down that trade there. Well, then that's less people that they can sell their food, and the South can sell less of their cash crops. Also, they won't be able to buy the naval supplies that are being produced here. So this is going to be an interesting dynamic when it comes to the Revolutionary War, that when England starts messing with one group of colonies, the other group of colonies are going to suffer too. They're going to feel the pinch and they're not going to like it. Even if they think that their sister colonies are wrong, it's still going to hurt the other colonies. The English are going to punish one colony, but really they're going to punish all of them. So that's something to keep in mind. Resources. Let's go over the other words here. Resources are raw materials, people, and equipment used to produce goods and services. So we talked about resources in previous chapter 2, where we talked about natural resources, um, capital resources, human resources. So we're just revisiting that here. And also naval, having to do with boats and ships. So when we're talking about naval supplies, we're talking about sails, we're talking about rigging, anything that has to do with sailing a ship. Finally, we get to social, political, and civic life. Um, the this in New England, it was centered around, basically church, school, village. Religious reformers were the leaders, the Puritans, the Pilgrims. They were the ones that told everybody what they should be doing. In the Mid-Atlantic, and town meetings is where they would discuss their differences. They would discuss what laws they want to do. So people would meet in the town, probably in church, and decide, okay, this is what we need to do. In the Mid-Atlantic, villages and cities varied with diverse. Remember, diversity is the key here. So they have many different religious faiths and languages, so you can't just meet in a church. So they would meet in market towns. It was basically centered around their trades. They would meet in town center and talk to each other about what they needed to do if there were any problems or any laws that they had to pass. In the South, though, remember, it was the opposite. It was not very diverse. You had big plantations, some mansions, a couple cities, very few schools, and the Church of England was the main church there. So it was very uniform in how they did things, very structured as far as their civic, social life is concerned. And then they would set themselves up in counties. I mean, here we got Tazewell County. You go up north, they don't really talk about their counties. They talk about their towns or their cities or the nearby city. But generally speaking, we don't talk, people up north don't talk about counties all that much. But in the south, they'll talk about counties because that's basically how it all got started. That they would have county governments that enforced most laws because everybody was so spread out. They would just say, okay, this is a group of mansions here, that's a county, and then we'll come together in the center of the county somewhere and just figure out our laws and our differences there. So there, you can see that the main points that you want to get out of here: water, food, cash crops. They were all interdependent on each other. And let me get back up here. The climate has a lot to do with it as far as what kind of resources they would make. You have rocky, cold area, moderate, nice, great for food growing, and then the hot, sweaty weather down here. That's great for difficult crops to grow that would become very, very valuable.